Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. We're still running in mile marker 7 here, and we have up next Douglas here to speak up on his session on governance in the Power Platform. So I'll turn it over to Doug right now. Go ahead, Doug.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Romão. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and today we'll be talking about governance for Power Platform. So I'm gonna share with you some thoughts, some plans that we have when we are discussing about this topic, and what Microsoft is doing related to that, like building some solutions, some templates, some other services that can connect with everything that we are talking, and how we can leverage this to build some better solutions, and how the IT teams can look at this governance in a good way and let the people do things in this platform with the right governance related to the company. So let me click here. So as you guys are seeing, we have some events that are happening, and mark in your calendars this event next year. Hopefully will happen personally. And thanks for the partners that are helping us with this event. So I'll just talk a little bit about myself. I'm from São José dos Campos. It's a city in Brazil, in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm technical specialist in Microsoft technologies and partner in a company here called Turnitin. We basically developed solutions related to collaboration and productivity using Microsoft technology. One of the things that I really like is speak at Microsoft and community events like this, and I spoke already in some Microsoft Ignite events and ASPC in Europe. So this is something that I really like. Hopefully I'll join you guys in other events. Basically my focus is in Power Platform and Modern Workplace, so SharePoint development and things like that, Office 365 Graph, and you can find me around in these events and community. And I try to speak English. Hopefully you guys will understand, but my main language is Portuguese. So if you guys find me in community, I try to do things in English. My personal blog and YouTube channel, it's in Portuguese, but you guys can reach out to me if you need anything. So the agenda will be to discuss a little bit about governance for Power Apps and Power Automate, and also talk about some stuff related to Power BI and CDS and things that are related to this platform itself. What is the motivation about talk about this kind of stuff? When we are talking about Power Apps and Power Automate and all these technologies, we have a lot of concern about the business users and some of the topics that are really important to like governance. It's one thing that maybe the people that don't talk too much, and this is really important for us when we are giving some responsibilities for the business users and the end users, how we can make sure that this is not throwing something bad for a company later on. Yeah, so talking about that, we know that what is the advantages of the opportunities that we have talking about Power Platform. We have a lot of things, not only for the business users or these citizen developers that Microsoft is calling them, but it's something that we are trying to have all the technology, all the applications, all the automations and everything else in one place. So if we talk about the best or the normal way to do things, we have a lot of applications in different technologies, in different environments, and we need to handle all of them. And we need to make sure that the data between them, the connections and everything are in place and are secure, and we know what is happening behind the scenes. And when we go through to the Power Platform, we have just a centralized way to have everything there. We have the dashboards, we have the automations, we have the apps, we have the data itself when we use the CDS, all in one place. And then it's better for us, it's an opportunity for us to have centralized, to be able to governance this and make sure that everything is set up in the way that we want. So this enables IT to have a better management about it. And this is really good for us talking about the all kinds of technologies that we have today. And we have a lot of them, you know. So this is one thing that we need to be aware, and there's a lot of opportunities for us too. So this is something that usually when we talk too much about the citizen developers and the business developers, the IT guys usually think, okay, we are giving too much power to these guys. And this is the main focus of Microsoft. Microsoft is creating things to let these people do things, but they are not forgetting about us. They are building things that we can use to manage these things. And we do responsibilities for these guys, but we are able to manage these and control what is happening as well. So this is something really good for IT as well. So we are talking about different places and for different kinds of people inside the company. When we are talking about governance, it's important that the makers know about it as well, know what is happening, why they do in the way that they do things. So we are talking to the makers as well, the Power Apps and Flow makers. We are talking to the DevOps guys. There is a lot of discussion about lifecycle management related to these apps, to the automations, the dashboards, and how we can manage this and how we can automate this kind of stuff and make sure that all the things that we are developing and are building for the different areas, different customers have this lifecycle managed. So we are also talking to these DevOps guys. We are talking to the IT guys, the IT department, the security guys, because they will have all this platform to manage things, manage everything that is happening, manage the alerts, the permissions, how the data is going through all the applications and everything else. And also we are talking to the support and training engineers. And this is basically when we are making the adoption in the company, how we are building things and make sure, okay, if you are training and support the team, the business developers or the citizen developers, how we can make sure that you are training the people in the right way, combined with the governance that we have in the company, in the guidelines that we have inside, and all the things that the IT and the management just defined. So we are talking to these 4 kinds of people inside the company. So we have the end users, the makers, we have the DevOps, we have the ITs, life security, and we also have the adoption guys, so to speak. So these guys they are really important to be aware of everything that is happening, because we have different points of view for each one of them, and the process of implementing this governance through the technology will hit all of them. So if we prepare in a way that everything is in place and everyone knows why they are doing, why they are implementing in that way, why it's important to know all these steps, will be better for us in an adoption, so to speak. If we decide to do this adoption, it will be smoothly, because we know each one of these persons know their object, their point of view and everything else. So we have some roles and responsibilities that we have for all of them. And we have also some products and development that Microsoft is doing to help them as well. So we have the COE, the program management. This is a tool that Microsoft developed. It's a package with a lot of tools for us to help this governance. So we have the responsibilities of this management of, this is basically Center of Excellence, the COE. So the Center of Excellence, we have some persons that are responsible, the project manager, the lead architect. For the platform enablement team, we have the technical governance, the infrastructure team. This is important to define these roles and responsibilities also because there's a lot of companies, and I can say by experience, there's a lot of companies that, okay, the people inside the company is just hitting the trial button and start doing things, and the IT doesn't even know what is happening there. And then if we have a plan, the IT guys have a plan, this technical infrastructure team, the lead architect, and everyone has a plan for it and knows their responsibilities and roles in this process, will be better for the business developers and also for the company itself. Because right now there's a lot of companies that discover that some areas are using and they are using the trials. And then the data is being shared between technologies that they don't even know. And there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes and they just don't know. And I can say by experience that we have here in Brazil, a lot of companies doing and discovering, like being surprised with the business guys that are just doing things in Power Automate and Power Apps, and they don't even know what it is, basically, the IT guys. So these responsibilities are important to have in our company, like which persons will be responsible for this infrastructure, which person will be responsible for defining which kinds of connectors, which kind of applications will be able to do or to use internally, how the data will be shared between these applications, which areas will be allowed to create kinds of apps and kinds of flows, the sharing between them, like if I can create an app and I can share with someone how this works, if I want to share with someone that it's outside, if I can or cannot. And all this training process, the adoption process, is really important to have these roles. So this is basically a plan that Microsoft is giving to have these roles divided by these kind of persons inside your company to help with this process. So when we are talking about these roles, we have like a bunch of activities or tasks that we have to make sure that all the process works fine. I will not talk about all of them, but basically by dividing these tasks and activities per role, it's better for us to have knowledge of, okay, the IT guys or the infrastructure guys will be responsible for taking care of this part of the platform, and the support team will be responsible for this part of the implementation. And the business users that will develop things will know, okay, I can build app, I can share an app, and I can build a flow, and I can publish this flow, and I can use these kinds of connectors. This knowledge of the tests that we can build and the tests that we can do inside the platform is really important to have this in a place that everyone knows, everyone sees. This is really good to share with all of the people involved in the process. So typically we have some things that we need to think of. We have these business data security concerns regarding connectors. If you are aware, basically Power Platform entirely works based on connectors. So if I want to build an app and I need to do things like saving data to in some place or get the user information or whatever I want to do in the app and the Power Automate, I will use connectors. So this is the way that I connect things inside this platform. And this is the real deal about Power Platform, because I don't need to know how to connect to Office 365. I don't need to know how to connect to SQL. I don't need to know how to connect to Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. I, or myself as a business developer, a guy from sales, a guy from HR, I can just connect, use my account, the connection will be there. And then this is really important because there are a lot of concerns regarding the security of these connectors. Because if we think about it logically, we have Power Automate, for example, and this is a approval process. And the approval process will be to publish something in a social media. The data is going through a lot of places and ending up in a social media. And then we are sharing things between these connectors. The data is going through each one of these connectors inside our Power Automate. So how can I be sure that the data that is going there, it's not leaking or it's not going to some place that I don't want? If all the business developers can develop a flow, they can just build a flow that get the data from our ERP or CRM and put in an Excel spreadsheet, and I can just get this outside my home or something. So there's a lot of security concerns about these connectors, and this is really important to ask. This is a question that needs to be done when we are using Power Platform. And by using this governance, we have a way to know what is happening and a way to configure how this will work for real. So we have this environment health regarding trial setup. Basically, this trial thing, it's the thing that I mentioned before. It's something that, at least here in Brazil, there's a lot of concerns about the person's just clicking the button trial and trying, and then 1 month later, everything is stopped to work, and then they ask to IT why it's not working. I have an application that it's not working, and in that moment, the IT discovers that there is an app that they don't even know, don't know how that works, and don't know about licensing and everything. So one question is how we can make this trial setup in a better way, or handle this in a better way. There's a lot of challenges related to the distribution of these apps and flows. Not only sharing things, because I can share with someone else or another area and things like that, but also the licensing related to that, because the licensing is attached to the app or attached to the flow itself or the user itself, and then there's a lot of challenges about that. And there's a lot of concerns and people asking about, okay, if I have one app with everything, I can just use it one license, and I need to put more licenses for the users if I want to share with them. If they will build, they will have a license, and then if they will consume, will be another license, and things like that. So we have a lot of challenges of maintaining this distribution of the apps and the licensing related to that. We have the security risks related to the shadow IT. This is the one topic that is there's a lot of discussion about. So how the IT guys make sure that everything, all the risks related to the security are in place, and we know what can be done to avoid these kind of security risks. We have a lot of things related to the GDPR, how we can set up these. Talking about Office 365, Office 365 already have a lot of things related to GDPR. I don't know if my app will be will use this kind of thing, will be handled by the GDPR. So there's a lot of asks about it. The LLM support about the apps. So if I have an app that I'm in the development environment, how can I be sure that this development or this app will be distributed into the production environment, and then the versioning, and how can I automatize this process, and if I can or not. And there's a lot of things that we need to concern about this creation and deployment about the apps and flows. We have this is a huge concern about ownership. I can say by experience here that we saw some customers that the people just started to build apps, build flows, and then suddenly this person got fired, and then the app and the flow was just stuck because the ownership wasn't, the IT or the governance wasn't in place there, and then nobody knows or nobody knew that this app were there, and then suddenly just stopped working because we removed the user ID and things like that. So this is something that we need to take into consideration. And the information risk management that I mentioned related to the connectors. So we have a process, and this process is the process that Microsoft is doing or is giving us as a white paper. So this is based on the white paper related to the governance. So I'll give you guys the link later on so you can download this white paper. But basically we have this process, and we have some checklists or things that we can take into consideration by talking about this process. So it's basically a process that we understand the steps that we have when we are talking about governance, and then how we can implement or how we can use some documentation or applications and tools that Microsoft is giving to us, and also how we train ourselves to develop these kind of solutions to our companies. So the first step is the overview. So knowing how the apps and the flows works, knowing from there, from where this come from, like how is the beginning of everything. The user clicks in a button to trial, the user saw a video in YouTube and start trying things, how this become real. So this is the first step that we will talk. So when we are talking about governance, we have some philosophies. We have the business guys that we are making these business guys the Power Apps or Power Automate champions. We are making or having them as a maker right now, not only a business guy that before asked to IT to develop something, asked to a consulting team to build something, but now they can do something. And then also the IT guys need to have this empowerment to manage everything, have a full visibility of everything that is happening, and making sure that they know what is happening, why it's happening, who is doing, and everything else. So by this movement to go to the cloud, not only for Power Platform, but for everything, it's to make sure that the business guys, the development guys, and the IT guys are aligned with everything, and they have tools to, or applications and tools that they can use to leverage this. So where these apps and flows come from? This is a really important question that we need to make, because this can become from like a SharePoint or Teams, because they can just, okay, there is a button here in SharePoint to create a flow. What is that? And then they click and a flow just exists. So we are kind of making the persons like gods inside here, because they can create from everywhere. They can create from Teams, from SharePoint, from directly in the Power Apps portal or Flow portal because they saw in a video, and they can just start doing things. They can just test out, go to the trial button, click there, and start doing things. So there's a lot of places that these apps and flows can come from. And we need to know from where this is coming from so we can manage this as well. We can manage that the SharePoint, which permissions we have in SharePoint to generate flows. We can have the permission to make sure that when the user is clicking trial, if these will be allowed or not, and things like that. So we have this customization coming from Office 365 and Dynamics 365. We have these tests or learns that the persons are doing, and we have the licensing that we actually paid. So we give a license for the user, and we know that this is happening. So we have these three ways, so to speak. So now we know from where these apps come from. from where these flows come from. We already have this overview, and then we can go to the next level. So the next step. And the next step is to know how the platform, the architecture of this platform works. So every time that you create an app and you create a flow, or your business user created one of these things, it's stored in some place. And where is it? So knowing environments is something important. And then each app and flow then runs in an environment. This is important to know. And there in these environments, we can create these solutions for production, for development, for QA. And we have this admin center that we can manage everything. We have the security and roles that we can have in place for these environments. So knowing the environments is something really important. And I'll explain a little bit. But basically, environments are this place that we can get some apps, some flows, and we can put in this place and manage this place. So we have a spot here called environments, this container, and we have all the connections, all the apps, all the flows, and all the assets related to these actions, the data, and everything else inside this container. And the container and this environment, it's basically inside a tenant, an Azure AD tenant, and then we can separate these environments for in different ways. We can have like an environment for dev, test, production. We can have for branches in our companies. The way that we organize the environments, it's up to us. But basically, we set up these environments per region, and we have a lot of things. And then all the resources will be inside this environment. So if I give access to Douglas to create something in the environment dev, he will be able to create an app, create a flow, and put all the resources related to that in this environment. So we have some key facts about environments. Basically, we have this is tied to the geographic location, so we can create these for Brazil, for Europe, and everything else. We can target to different audiences. As I said, we can have this dev, QA, production. We can have for branches. We can have for departments. This is pretty much the way that we decide. So we have this management way to do things. We also have a default environment there that everything in the beginning is there. So if the user start doing things, is there. And we can manage this permission. I have a link that you guys can see later on about permissions related to the environments. So basically, we have this strategy that we need to define if the user will be able to have a trial or not, which permissions they will have to create apps, automates, or Power BIs, and everything. And you can also create environments to let the users create some POCs and things like that. So the strategy of creating these environments is really good, and it's a really important step to establish in the beginning. So we know about the apps, where they come from, we know the environments, how they work, and then we have the security. And basically the three next steps are related to the main things. Secure, monitor, and alert/act are the main things that Microsoft is looking at. So basically we have 5 layers of security. The security related to the tenant, to the environment, to a resource specifically, to the common data services, that it's the service related to data. If you don't know about it, it's basically a service that Microsoft is doing or giving for us right now, that we can structure our data there and have views, forms, rules, and everything, and also a database, basically a service of databases. And we can also have the security about connectors itself. So we can have the security on the top of the topology of the infrastructure there, the tenant, also to the environment, resource, and then we can have this hierarchy of permissions. That is good to know which layers are there, because then we can set up in our environment which security model will be fit better. So And then basically we have a lot of things going on in each one of these levels, and then it's basically we are securing our data, talking about everything. In the end of everything, it's just the data that we are securing and thinking, because the data will go through these levels. One important thing to say is that the user won't have access about something that they not do already. Like if the user doesn't have access to a SharePoint site, they will not have just because I give resource level permission or environment level permission or something. So the permission, it's not something that you can, it's basically inheriting the permissions in the applications that we are using. So this is really good. And then we have this DLP thing that is the data loss prevention policies. And we have this is a way to prevent the connectors to be whoever or whatever the user wants. So if in our case, the security guys decide that we can't connect things to Facebook, or we can't have in the same flow, in the same app, a connector to our CRM, our Dynamics, or our ARP, and then in the same thing we have an external connector from another company or something else, we can define which policies will be applied there. And then we can define if the connectors are business only or not. This is pretty good, because then we can allow the user to, okay, you can use only these connectors and not the other ones and things like that. So this is really good. And this coming April, this is already there, was already deployed. So we can block everything there. This is really good from the security point of view, because then we can separate the connector that we want to use and we want to the business users to use. And they don't even know that Facebook is available or Twitter is available and things like that. So basically you can create this policy, and then you can set this policy in the environment, and then you can create these additional policies just to exclude some environments. So you can work basically by exceptions. So you can limit everything and then create some exceptions, or the opposite. Basically, it's dynamic in this way. We can manage in this way. So you can support like no Microsoft connectors or only business connectors, and then create some exceptions for the applications that you want. So basically the security, it's there. We are securing our data through the connectors, and then we need to monitor this. We need to make sure that the data and the logs and the history and the auditing is in place, so we can know what is happening. And we have an administration center in Power Apps, in the Power Platform, that you can see users that are using locations, capacity, and things like that. And you have a lot of reporting. And this is good because it's connected also to the protection.office.com, the portal for Office 365 connection protection. You need to have, if I'm not mistaken, E3 or E5 licensing related to that, but you have this connection as well. But in the admin center, you have already a lot of data that you can consume there, and you can also personalize this or build your Power BIs or your Power Automate to get this data from there and then generate or build your dashboards in a way that you want. And I'll try to share some demo with you real quick. So we have this log and analytics. The data will be stored in the protection.office.com for the E3 or E5. And also we have this logging in the Office 365. So if your IT guys are used to use the Office Protection Administration Center to manage everything related to Office 365, the Power Platform logs will be there as well. This is good to have one thing centralized. And also you can have some connectors to manage this. So we have a bunch of connectors to use in Power Automate and Power Apps to connect to the admin center and get the data and get the flows, get the power apps, get the users that are doing things, which environments we have, and things like that. So you can build your own flow to do things and your own power apps to do things to manage this and provide to your IT guys or security guys. You can also use PowerShell. We have some simplets to have some automations, and if you guys want to use PowerShell, it's up to you as well. We have already some simplets really good to use. And we have this Center of Excellence Starter Kit that I will show. Is just, there is a documentation in Microsoft to have this, and you can basically import in your environment. There is a lot of things there, like dashboards, flows, power apps to help you with this already. So you don't have to build. You can just install and use these tools that Microsoft is providing us. So basically for PowerShell, we have these things, and also for the connectors. This is good, the thing that I mentioned to you. Later on, I will share the slides so you can get the links. But basically clicking this page, we can see all the connectors available, and these ones are the connectors that are available for Power Apps and Power Automate to use. And so we can have a flow that gets all the flows and do things there, give permissions, remove permissions, and things like that. And also we have some PowerShell modules already to do things. So we have a flexibility to manage things. Okay, so basically we saw everything related to security and monitoring everything that is happening. And then it's good to have this empowerment. So alert and act is something related to how we can go to the champions, go to the IT guys, go to the business developers and give to them these actions. So we have the management connectors. This is just an example of flows. If you go to Flow right now and search for this, get list of new Power Apps, flows, and connectors, it will give you Flow entirely with everything in place. So you can just create a flow that will get everything, and when something happens there, you will receive a notification and something like that. Basically for the PowerShell and the connectors, I'll give you this link later on, but basically we have some tasks that we can use PowerShell to do, to manage permissions, manage the environments and everything, also for Power Apps. And then related to basically the administration of it, it's good to have you guys and the business developers knowing the process. So there is a lot of flows that you can use to make sure that basically these persons are using or are being notified that something is happening, and the communication through this process is good to use also flows to do it. So you can have these welcome new makers. It's just a flow that you can, when someone start doing something, you just send an email and say, okay, I saw that you just started a flow, and then this is a welcome party for us. And these are some documentations that you can use, the best practices and things like that. So the communication against the champions that you are using in this process is really important. So Microsoft is just giving some tools for us as well. And then we have this lifecycle management. So we have some solution. Basically, we have solutions inside this Power Platform, and these solutions is the way that Microsoft is giving for us to build everything and put in one small package, and then this small package will go through the lifecycle management. So we have this solution. It's basically we create some CDS entities, so we create some tables in our data, so to speak. We create some Power Apps and we create some flows, and this is structured inside a package that I can move from develop to production to test or whatever. And then we can put this package as something that is going through our lifecycle management. So basically the solution is a way that you can send this package of Power Apps, flows and everything through the process. So you can have everything in just one small package. So there's just one thing really important to know about managed and managed solutions. Basically, this is a best practice to have some of these packages. If we use unmanaged, it means that we can, when we deploy to a place, the persons can change this solution after being deployed. And when this is a managed solution, we are just getting this package locked and deploying to production, for example, and then we make sure that this is just a package that going through. This is an artifact that we can't change after deploying. It's just going through deployment. So this is really important to know and make sure that when we are developing things, we are putting in solutions so we can move forward against these environments. And by experience, I can say that here in Brazil, there's a lot of companies just doing things and they are not concerning about that. And then later on to move things, it's just too hard. So this is a really important step. So basically we have these layers inside the solution that you can manage, and then basically everything will be in a package that you can import and export against the environments. Basically right now we have a lot of things that we can put in the solutions. We have history, we have these layers, we have the wizard to import and export. And right now we have also some setup that you can do in DevOps, in Azure DevOps. So your package, your artifacts going through the lifecycle management in a way that you can build, you can test, because right now we have tests in Power Apps, and then you can test, make sure that your app is going good and is doing what it's supposed to, and then building this artifact and publishing in the environment that you want. So the entire lifecycle can be managed as well. And a good thing is that we don't have downtime in these parts. You can manage this in a good way, you can create dependencies and things like that. So we have this DevOps part being used. So when we use the LLM, basically we can create these things, going through the build, going to the release, generating the package, and importing and exporting the package through the solutions. This is basically what I said before. So now we are almost there with the solution, the steps here, and I need to rush a bit. Basically, we have this center of excellence that I said to you guys. This educate and support is making sure that not only the business developers, the business makers, they have tools to build things, but also for us to build things on top of platform. So this center of excellence is the thing that Microsoft is giving us information to make everyone champions, not only the makers, but also the IT, the security, and the governance guys as well. And this is really important because basically we are connecting the units, not only the business, but also the IT guys and everyone. So this Center of Excellence kit, I will just show you guys real quick. Basically, the Excellent kit, it's a package that you can download. It comes with all these files. So we have a setup in SharePoint. We have some Power Apps, Power BI, sorry, that you can have, and you have some flows. And all of these are just tools that Microsoft is giving to you, so you can build and use in your environment, and then make sure that your governance is in place, or you are able to use this inside your environment. So if I open my environment, a demo environment that I have here, I have some stuff that I can show you guys. So I have one Power BI that it's based on the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. So we have a lot of dashboards already connected. We can just open this Power BI file and then change it and connect to our environment. And then we can find the apps, flows, who is maker, insights that they are doing, risk assessment management. So you can have a lot of tools already done for you guys. And also we have a lot of Power Apps for DLP editor, for example. So this is pretty much done. We can just use it. So I can set up the connections that I want to be business data only. And all of this is done, it's ready. So you can just download. There's a documentation that I'll give you guys in the link that you can just download everything, and there's this step-by-step to install. So you can just start using it. You can just start moving your governance to the right place. Okay, so there are some links that I'll give you guys here that you can use. This is the starter kit, the admin white paper that I mentioned, some of the latest information. And this is something that I would like to talk to you guys about, and hopefully you guys understood. I don't know if you have any questions in the chat, Michael. But basically, I would like just to say that this governance part is really important, and there is a lot of point of views, as you guys saw, hopefully. And this is something that we need to be concerned. It's really important. We are giving power to the users, the business users, but we also need to be careful about what they are doing, how they are doing, and we'll provide this kind of information to them and make themselves like more free to do things, and also for us to manage everything. So, any questions, Michael?
None in the Q&A so far, but folks can start asking away.
Yes. Let the URL here. So if you guys want to download the links will be there. You guys will access this content later on, but you can just download and do everything already. So I would say to do it. It's really good. And thank you guys for the opportunity, the guys that are organizing this event, and you, Michael, that is holding this session. Thank you for the help, and I hope that you guys understood what I meant here and start doing things.